Oh, sure. I was just going to knock on the... Tom won't like that.
Boom, boom, boom. Here, go give her the...
Now it's official. Thank you. I'll call this meeting of the Committee of the Whole of the Council of the Town of Oliver, Monday, November 9th, to order, and ask the CAO if we have any late items. Sorry, CAO.
There are no late items, thank you.
Thank you. Then can I get a motion to adopt the agenda? Mayor Johansen, Councillor Schwarzenberger, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Adoption of prior minutes, adoption of the October 26th Committee of the Whole meeting minutes. Can I get a motion to adopt? Councillor Schwarzenberger, second. Councillor Mattes, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item E, delegations and petitions. Item E1, Oliver Theatre Society 2021 budget presentation. And I will invite the Oliver Community Theatre Society to the podium.
Okay, so thank you very much for having us here. I'm just going to do a bit of an introduction, and then I'll call on Gord Hahn to do a bit of a budget presentation. We have had an annual general meetings last month, so I'll just introduce our new board. The president is Kenn Oldfield. He is not available tonight. He is not feeling well, so we'll see him soon. He's fine. Our new vice president is Linda Nunes. We have Gord Hahn, who's our treasurer, and Tara Havanis is our secretary. We also have Tom Saleh, who is our past president, as well as the directors. We have Wendy Newman, and we have two new directors in Richie Kendrick and Meryl Bjerken. So that's our board of directors now. So a little review of our annual report that was submitted. I just wanted you to know that, as we all know, the theatre was hit by the pandemic just like everyone else was, and we had a very interesting year. But we were succeeding in a lot of things that we were doing, and we are happy with the successes we were having until the pandemic hit. So our year end is end of June, so we had about 3 months where we did have to close our doors. We were set to have 173 days of operation, and we had 56 of those that were canceled due to the pandemic. So after that, and after the annual report that was submitted, we had to sort of reinvent ourselves. And what we reimagined what we could do this summer was we imagined that in the fall we would have a local artist series. So we had a call for submissions, and we had 25 applicants. We chose 7, and we will be presenting 3 more this winter. So far, for the 7 of the fall shows, we have sold 423 tickets. So it's been a huge success, and the audiences want to come back and see the shows that we're doing. So far, we have presented 4 artists, and they have all operationally been a success. Since the time we decided to do this local artist series, we have seen a lot more interest in returning to the theatre in these small, socially distanced numbers. Community groups, the schools, the artists, and other renters are all starting to return or inquire about returning to the theatre. So we are going to continue to plan and operate, keeping a close watch on what is going on through the provincial health orders and guidelines. And all bookings that we are accepting have COVID clauses in their contracts and are requiring the groups to have their own COVID plans in place. So that's my little report on what the theatre's doing, and now I'll call on Gord to come up and give a little review of the budget that was submitted.
Good evening, councillors. I'm Gordon Hahn, treasurer of the society. Of all the objectives that the board and the past boards have had for the Oliver Community Theatre Society, I think 4 stand out. First, staffing the organization with the right people, and in Amy and Leah, we have attained that. Second was to equip theater that was brand new not many years ago and needed a lot of equipment. Using grants as much as we can, I think the place you're sitting in is reasonably well equipped. Create some financial reserves so that as we expand the productions that we do and the size of the productions, that we can manage the risk of it. And again, we're in fairly good shape in that. And finally, of course, to create an awareness of this fine facility amongst the promoters, the artists, and the potential audiences that we have to attract. That'll make this a successful organization. As Leah has said, going into 2019-20 year, that's last year, we felt that all these objectives were in fairly good shape, and we were very optimistic. This was going to be the year that it all came together. We booked some big shows. We booked more shows than before. We had promoters booking here, and just all in all, this place was beginning to hum, and there was a lot of pleasure in that. So, as Leah again has said, the first portion of the year went along very well, and we were right on track. And then came COVID. That was not planned. So the board of the directors reacted to that situation, and being a bunch of very conservative individuals, we put the brakes on. Do not spend money, and do what is necessary to make the year financially successful. It was. We had done very well at the early part of the year, and by being very careful in the last few months, we were in a position where we could actually put some money into reserves and improve our position. The next challenge was budgeting in this era of COVID, and as you can imagine, that's almost impossible to do. You have to make a bunch of assumptions, and I think my task standing here is you have the numbers, so my task is to tell you what the assumptions were. We are projected to lose some money this year, and in true fact, we hope we'll do a bit better than that, but again, it's highly dependent on COVID. As you can guess, putting on programs or doing almost anything when you're limited to an audience size of 50 is a serious challenge for Leah and Amy, and for the board. But I think we're all rising to the challenge. Our budget for 2020-21 assumes that the first half of the year will be rather inactive, slow. So far it's done better than we had thought, and so that's good. It assumes, of course, that we'll once again be very conservative in spending. This is not a year to improve our supplies of the things that Amy and Leah have on their dream list. We'll keep it to essentials. It also assumes grant monies of $16,000 and $16,000 in emergency wage subsidy program funds. This is a really tough period, and as I had said earlier, we managed last year to put some money into reserves, $15,000 in fact, and as you can see, our projected potential budgeted losses in that same area, which is why we put the money there. My personal hope is that if you look at this COVID era as a 2-year phase, that we can come out of it even, like the reserve, what we put into the reserves and what we might lose brings us to a zero, and hopefully better than that. I'm dreaming of being in the black. So if COVID treats us well, I think this organization can provide a great service for this community, and it has the potential of being a good year. I'm open to questions.
Mayor, Council, any questions? Councillor Mattis.
Thank you. It's not really a question, just a comment. If I'm reading it correctly, you're not looking for any increase. It's 112,500 for this year and again for next year, if I'm reading this correctly.
That is correct.
I think that's wonderful, and I really hope that this comes true, because I look at your incomes as being quite aggressive, and I hope that it really works out the way that you've planned, because you certainly have some good things planned there. But to come in with no further ask, and knowing that our population has increased, that actually represents a small decrease for everybody in terms of this assessment. I think you're to be
Yeah,
congratulated.
no, we felt that in this, the nature of the times are that it's one of the areas we chose to be conservative and ask for nothing more. That obviously is not something we'll be able to do every year, but because wages go up and everything else. But for this year, it just felt right to us.
Any other questions? Mayor Johansen?
No question, just a comment. I think you guys have done an amazing job, and I think you're moving in the right direction. I know there's probably nothing more frustrating than people who work and manage a theater not being able to have any shows or any audiences. So finding out ways to do that, I think, is going to be very important moving forward, because I don't think there's going to be a magic switch that goes on and says this is over. And so figuring out a way to have small shows and maybe bigger shows or more events is going to be a way, is going to be key to making, having a successful year and getting to those projected incomes that you're talking about.
I totally agree. It is the way of the future. We're learning a great deal in doing it, but by golly, it's tough to do with an audience of 50. Just do the math. You can't bring somebody in from anywhere because the transport costs are too high, and it's just financially it's very, very difficult.
Any further questions? Councillor Schwarzenberger.
Thank you. Just a quick question. If I missed it, I apologize, but does it show on your budget here what your reserve balance is?
I'm sorry, I missed the last two words.
Your reserve balance.
Do you know it offhand? I can look it up. I've got it here. I think that's right. Without looking it up, Larry, I believe it's $65,000.
Okay. Well, that's getting healthy. If this works out, you're going to need a little bit of it to balance your budget this year. So, no, but I would agree with my colleagues that it's great that you've been able to come in at zero.
The reserves, Larry, are also for, with each year, the theater gets older, and
of course,
we've got the replacement issues. So
yeah.
We're trying to build that so future boards are in good shape.
Yeah, exactly.
Any other questions? Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
Moving to business, item F1, mask wearing in town buildings, and I will turn it over to the corporate officer.
Thank you, Chair Grice. This report before Council this afternoon is to determine whether Council wishes to implement wearing masks in town buildings through a resolution or through the development of a mask policy. With the rising number of COVID cases in British Columbia, Dr. Henry's expectation is that everyone wears a mask in public places. It's not an order at this time. Evidence is showing that in some situations a safe distance is not possible, and a mask can be worn as an additional layer of protection. Some municipalities in British Columbia have developed a mask requirement in their municipal facilities. Hadn't included West Kelowna, but that just occurred the last few days. Kelowna, Merritt, Kamloops, Victoria, Richmond, and Delta. Jurisdictions across Canada, larger ones, Calgary, Edmonton, and Toronto, and agencies in British Columbia, such as Translink and BC Ferries, mask wearing is mandatory in public places. In the town of Oliver, town staff do wear masks when we cannot maintain the 2 meter mask requirement. For example, today I had to meet somebody at the counter, but I chose to put a mask on just to give that extra layer of protection. Public Works staff and the bylaw enforcement in their vehicle, it's limited to one. If there's more than one, they do put a mask on, and they sanitize the vehicles as well every day. The building official, he is required to wear a mask at all times when doing a site visit, and homeowners are advised at the appointment time that the building official be wearing a mask, and we ask that only one person be on site when they're there, and they sometimes choose to put a mask on at the same time. Our utility clerk, who does the metering, he puts full PPE on, a mask and a gown, when doing a meter inspection in an enclosed home setting, and the homeowners are advised, and it's not a requirement of the homeowner, but they do put masks on occasion. First aid response, again, staff are required to put a mask on due to the nature of the close proximity. And the fire department, again, they totally mask up for their emergency response. Back early in the pandemic, the town of Oliver implemented a number of measures to open our buildings when we initially closed, and we do follow WorkSafe BC guidelines as required by the provincial health officer. Consideration to wear a mask in a town building will not deter our continued vigilance in our buildings for physical distancing. We've put number limits on rooms. We've put in engineering protocols, and we have many administrative controls that all staff are to follow. The current practice of the town is that we provide the masks for staff if they are required to wear them as their job at our cost. If council chooses to put a mask requirement in for the public, we would provide one. If they didn't have one, then when they entered the building, we do have a small supply of disposable masks. If demand increases, we may want to take a look at that additional cost that the town may incur. If a mask policy was put in place, that we would have to put in considerations for people who have disabilities. Dr. Henry has indicated that that's one of the reasons why she's hesitating, because people who have respiratory conditions or dementia or hard of hearing, putting a mask on does create additional challenges for them. And as well, people who are young, we don't want to have young children having to wear a mask. There is a limitation on that. Most recently, indoor restrictions are increasing, and I just read today that those restrictions, in particular in the Lower Mainland, they apply to the outdoor activities as well. It's indoor and outdoor, that they don't want any social gatherings. Enforcement, I'm not suggesting that we put in a broad enforcement measure, but definitely some communication to the public. It could be a public message from our mayor. I noticed City Kelowna, they had a little video of their mayor. We could do some information on our website and our social media that we're encouraging people to wear masks when they enter our town building. I don't think that we would refuse service or consideration for fines. That would have to be made under careful consideration. Determining the level of support hasn't occurred at this time with the public, but trends are leaning to that, where people are wearing masks on a more common nature. And just as a note, we're here today in the theater because we have the additional space, but we are looking at renovations two council chambers, which would, the room is smaller, so there would be a mask requirement for the public if they wish to attend an open public meeting. So I have some options before council that you may wish to resolve, that masks be worn in all town buildings. You may wish to direct staff to develop a mask policy, or you may reject a mask wearing policy at this time. And I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Vakovich. Any questions? Councillor Schwarzenberger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My only question is, I see this as a administrative policy, and management, you know, their job is to keep staff and the public safe. So I just think that if mask wearing would be needed to keep staff and the public safe, then administration can put that policy together, and I don't think we should have to vote on it. Thank you.
Councillor Mattis?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I see it as two parts. One part is it is a management responsibility which they have taken, as they've described, and they do have policy for our employees. And then the second part is for the public, and that's what we're being asked about today. It's not the employees. Management's already done a great job of putting that policy into place. What we're being asked is, do we want to have a policy to impact the public in our buildings? I think we should follow the lead of the province, and when the province mandates it, we certainly want to be ready to accommodate the public, and we certainly want to, maybe as part of the management policy now or procedure now, is to put some signage up asking people to wear masks if they have them. But in terms of mandating masks for the public, I don't think that we should go there until the province goes there. But in terms of the staff, that's strictly a management question.
Councillor Schwarzenberger?
Thank you. I can see that, but also public entering our building may cause health concerns for staff if they're not wearing masks. So again, I think if management is keeping staff safe and they feel that Dr. Henry's proclamations mean that we should be requiring masks in our town buildings, then I think it should just be a administration policy.
Councillor Mattis?
Totally support that, but at this point, Dr. Henry has not said that it's a requirement. And that's my point. Until they say it, I'm not sure that we should be saying it.
Councillor Ventimiglia?
So my thinking was along the same lines as Councillor Mattis. I believe that it's time, if we don't already, to have signage up at all of our entrances to our public buildings encouraging mask wearing, as is done in most of the supermarkets and businesses around town now, the larger ones anyway. Encouraging mask wearing. We might even also want to have a supply ready to go for those that arrive and realize they forgot theirs and wish they had brought it. But as far as mandating, I also don't believe that that's something that we need to be doing until it's handed down to us from the province.
I'll jump in then. I had the same notes as well. I think we take our guidance from the provincial health officer, and unless there's a mandate or an order, I'm not really comfortable developing a policy. But I think signage is a great idea. Councillor Ventimiglia?
Like just a personal story, I walked into the town hall last week wearing my mask because I just assumed that we had to. Because most places you have to now. So I think people are getting more and more used to that, but we still, until it's given as a direction to us, I don't think that we need to be making the mandate.
Mayor Johansen?
Okay, I'll say something now. Just a question to staff. I mean, usually you wear a mask when you can't maintain your social distancing. So from a visitor point of view, where you've only got two people in there, it's probably not that a concern. But what about as far as staff being able to maintain their 6 foot social distance? And I think that may be why some of the other municipalities have brought it in, and some stores have brought it in as well. So not necessarily a provincial health order that you have to wear a mask, but you should be wearing a mask when you can't maintain your social distance. So just asking, you know, that goes back to more of a staff policy then. Is it, you know, how are staff being able to maintain their social distance, or is a mask helpful with that? And I know there was some information in the report around how the works yards are going and wearing a mask when two are in a vehicle. So you may already be doing that, which would be to continue as we are.
Do you want me to respond? Through the chair. Oh, this fell down. There we go. Yes, I think that staff in all town buildings are not having any difficulty in complying with wearing a mask when they can't keep their physical distancing, and I think it provides people with comfort as well. So we could definitely do that, and I think putting some signage outside, if people want to wear a mask or wish to wear a mask, we could, and provide masks for their availability. I know for myself, sometimes I'm going out and I have to turn around to the car to go get my mask. So, yeah. And we can wait for Dr. Henry's order.
Councillor Mattis?
So if I read this correctly, unless we actually want to do something, there's no motion required. It's just a discussion. Unless you want to make a motion.
No.
Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, moving on to item F2, notice of motion and from Mayor Johansen, and I will refer to the CAO.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mayor Johansen has brought forward a proposed notice of motion for council's discussion. This is an introduction at this point in time, so I will pass it over to him to provide some background to his request here.
Thank you, CEO. Yeah, so I've had a few discussions with various business owners in town, and the subject of business tax has come up, not necessarily in a negative way, but it has come up, and a little more recently, probably as COVID is going along and people are looking at their expenses and being to write off business tax when your income is dropping at the same time. So I just started to do a little research on exactly where we were at and what we were doing with our business tax, and the last information that I was able to get was from 2012, where the council of the day felt that the business tax ratio, the multiple that was being used at the time, was around 2.9, which was considered pretty high, and so they made a decision at that point in time to reduce over a 3-year period the multiple down to 2.45, which is what the regional district charges, which is a common strategy amongst various municipalities when they want to reduce their tax burden or shift their tax burden from business to residential. They will reduce their multiple and it's a proven method of doing that. The challenge comes when you get to that point. If you continue to stay with a fixed multiple, you can actually get a shifting in tax burden back to where you came from, just because there is different market value changes in different classes. And so when you just use a multiple, that can actually cause some problems depending if the market value in one class is dropping faster than the market value in another class. So what typical municipalities will do is they'll go to a revenue neutral approach at that point in time. The town of Oliver has stayed with the multiple of 2.45. So what I really was looking for here was just to get some more information so that when a business owner asks me about business tax or the subject comes up, is that I would be more informed to have that discussion. It'd be good to know where the business tax is at the day, and also competitively where we are at with neighboring municipalities. I know that the town of Asuyas, their business tax multiple that they have right now is under 2. But that doesn't mean anything, and don't get stuck on the multiple itself. What really is important is for the same business in 2 different municipalities that are 30 kilometers apart, is the tax similar? And what is the tax ratio? I know in Oliver, we're probably about 80% residential and 20% business. Anyway, this information I thought would be valuable for us to have, and it would be good for us to have at budget time, so that if there was a desire to look at shifting that tax burden, then we would be able to have that discussion at that point in time. So this is just for information, other than to inform us where we're at, since the last kick at the can here where some change was made was in 2012.
Thank you, Mayor Johansen. Councillor Mattis?
Just going back to when that occurred, the reason for the 2.45 at the time was that was the provincial average. That's where that number came from. I believe I was on council at the time when we did that. And we looked at basically that businesses were paying 3 times the tax rate that residences were paying, and they were getting half the services. They don't get garbage pickup, they don't get a whole bunch of things, and yet they were paying 3 times as much for less. So at that point, there was myself and some other business people on council at the time and said, it really isn't fair. And it, as the mayor alludes to, it isn't huge numbers or dollars necessarily, and it also had to do with making us competitive. And that's really a huge factor. If a business is looking at locating one place or another, it does become a factor what the taxes are. So just thought I'd throw that out.
Thank you, Councillor Mattis.
Yeah,
Mayor
Council,
Johansen?
that is correct. That's, the RDOS uses 2.45, which I believe is the provincial maximum. No, it's not the provincial max, it's the average, right? So I guess the ideal thing, this would go on the agenda at our next meeting, and we would be able to vote on it, and if everyone's in favor of it, we would have that information available for the general budget discussion in January.
Can we vote now?
Only to get it on the next agenda to vote again.
Councillor Ventimilla?
I was just going to add that I'm in support of moving this motion forward, if for no other reason than getting information to work with, because what you're asking for is information that I don't have and I'm not familiar with. And so I think that it will only help us to make better decisions having that information in front of us. And so I'm supportive.
Councillor Schwarzenberger?
Yeah, I agree. If we haven't looked at it for 12 years, it's past time to have that new information before we look at our 2021 budget.
Any further discussion? Okay, then moving on to item G, public question period. I see we have no public. So I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Ventimilla, Councillor Schwarzenberger, all in favor?